Hey everybody, my name is Jacob Robinson, and I am currently in the MAT program with the University of Arkansas at Monticello for the fall semester of 2019, and I am in the Foundations of Reading class 5013. And today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the science of reading. Um, for anybody that doesn't have an education background, the science of reading is probably a foreign term to them, something that they are not as familiar with. And so today, I kind of want to help familiarize you with it. And if you already know about the science of reading, hopefully I'm just going to be hitting on stuff that you already know. And I'm just going to be refreshing it maybe for you just a little bit. But science of reading, this presentation today, just to give you an introduction and tell you what we're going to be talking about. Um, Science of reading is going to be defined in this presentation. We're going to talk about just what it is. What is the science of reading? What are the parts of it? What is it? What does it cover? Where it came from? Different things like that. And we're going to talk about the theoretical models that are studied. We're going to highlight some of the main ones that help us to understand a little bit about the science of reading and just kind of talk about how phonics plays a huge role in the science of reading. Because I mean, you're breaking it down to its very, very the smallest part of it. So we're going to talk about phonics and how that's broken down, and how there's different ways that people choose to teach the science of in the science of reading, as far as phonics and things like that. Code emphasis and meaning emphasis are two, that kind of contrast a little bit. And so we're going to talk about the differences there, and then kind of explain. I don't know how many of you know what orthographic mapping is, but we're going to talk a little bit about that during this presentation. Science of reading, again, going to define it. Science of reading is really the study of how we learn to read and the different methods for teaching reading, and that it kind of encompasses, the neurological part of it, our brain. What parts of our brain are stimulated in learning to read, and then we look into like the developmental challenges that people have in reading. That's encompassed by the science of reading, and it just kind of looks at what parts of the brain or needing work or needing different areas of focus to help and change those problems. Those developmental disabilities. How they can be attended to, how we can help as educators. One of the models that I would like to talk about is the simple view of reading, and it was proposed by Philip Goh and William Turner, and they broke it's exactly what it sounds like, the simplest way that you could describe uh, reading. And so it's broken down into two parts: being able to read and recognize words. That's the first part. Whenever you have a piece of paper in front of you as a child and you're able to read a word and recognize it, that's the first part. And it's broken down into more categories of how you learn, being able to read words. And then another part of reading that we don't talk about as much is comprehending those words. And so that's the two parts: reading them, recognizing, and then comprehending, understanding those words, and then what text that they're being used in. I think both of those play a huge part in a student being able to excel in reading. This model is very similar to the reading rope that we're going to talk about next, and it was created by Hollis Scarborough. It was designed. See, Scarborough, he had videos and lectures about reading, and parents would come and have these questions of why is my child struggling to read? And he realized you couldn't give a cookie cutter answer for why these students were learning to read, because one student might not be able to read for this reason, and another student may struggle with a different area. So he broke it down into, again, two major parts, which are called the reading rope. Here on this presentation, you can see kind of a picture of that reading rope and how it works together. The lower strands consist of the recognizing words, going back to the simple view of reading, being able to recognize them, among these, sight recognition, to see a word and know what it is. phonological awareness, getting into the phonics, the sounding of the words, and then be able to look and to decode the words. That's the lower strands, okay? Word recognition, again, very similar to the simple view of reading. The upper strands are going to be the comprehension of language, and they can be broke down into many different areas. Reading comprehension is something I think more people struggle with, and so he noticed those upper strands. There's two distinct, just like the simple view of reading. There's two distinct areas, and those upper strands would be the language comprehension. Background knowledge, the structure of the language, vocabulary, knowledge of literacy. Those are the upper strands. And see, what they do is you have the lower strands and you have the upper strands. And to really make a very solid reader where a child does not struggle in literacy is you have to have all those strands working together to create a rope. And within that rope, if that rope is strong, you will have a strong reader. And so they intertwine in the teaching and learning to read and then to be able to comprehend that. So that is Scarborough's reading rope. Next, we have the four-part mental processor. And it just, like I told you, 4 parts of the brain that process different areas of, as far as language, as far as speech. You have 4 different areas, and they're highlighted. There's a picture in this, the PowerPoint, that shows the 4 different areas. One is a speech sound awareness. Be able to hear the word and be able to take the individual sounds of that word and learn language. And then the other one is a context. One of them is, what context is this language being used, and being able to understand the words that you're reading and what those words mean. Sound symbol association, to be able to put a sound with a letter. And then letter recognition and storage, the orthographic processor. That's been able to put all that into where we store that, where we remember it, and we can read those words and be familiar with them because we've read them before. Aries phases of word level reading. 4 phases. Pre-alphabetic happens before you ever have any formal kind of teaching in a classroom setting where we're learning how to read. It comes from just what they observe. Okay, if a child goes by Walmart and they observe Walmart up there on the above the doors, they're going to start associating those letters and that word with that store. That's pre-alphabetic. They're learning words by just what they see in their lives. Partial alphabetic, where some letters and words are being learned, but really they just have an emphasis. They're able to tell you a word, but the emphasis is on that first and that last word or letter of the word. And then full alphabetic, their readers are able to learn various different words, and they have strategies. If they have a word they don't understand, they have strategies to kind of learn that word. Consolidated alphabetic it's kind of goes back to the one we just covered, being able to store those frequent letter patterns that they're used to seeing, be able to store those in their memory. Okay, phonological awareness, it's the ability to recognize and manipulate the sound properties of spoken words. These are syllables, initial sounds. As a child develops this phonological awareness, they'll understand that these words are made up of small sound units that make up the whole word, and that those small sound units are in bigger chunks known as syllables, breaking it down to its very smallest part. And children who have phonological awareness are able to identify and make oral rhymes. They can clap the syllables. You've seen students be able to clap the syllables, and they can recognize words with the same initial sounds like money and mother. That's an example. Phonics. Phonics is it's just a method of teaching people to read by taking those sounds with letters or groups of letters and putting them together. And decoding is knowing which sounds and which letters, make what sound. And letter combinations like, PH makes a f sound, just like F makes a f sound. So that's phonics. Some children will need more instruction in phonics than other children will, but phonics is important because it's used as a tool to learn to read and to spell. And so decoding the words, and being able to spell them and sound them out and use phonics, to me, is a huge, huge, huge part of what we do when we're teaching reading. The next slide is fluency. Fluency is being able to read accurately, quickly, and with expression. I think we sometimes we forget that it's not only enough to learn it, but to be able to read, in a timely manner, and to be able to read on grade level. By there's various testings and screenings and monitoring that can be done by teachers to make sure that students are fluent up to their grade level that they're supposed to be at. The next one would be vocabulary. Vocabulary is just the body of words that students have to know to read the text that you're giving them, to understand those words, that they're being given. And so, vocabulary in every subject, you have vocabulary. A student's going to have vocabulary in math. They're going to have vocabulary in reading, in science, and in social studies. So they have to be able to expand that vocabulary and learn these new words to be able to understand what the teacher is trying to get across to them. Code emphasis versus meaning emphasis. Two approaches to learning early skills as a child. Code emphasis is really about phonics, the phonemic awareness, about those letters and those words, knowing that particular group of them. That's what, when you learn, you're putting that emphasis. There's another method out there called meaning emphasis, and it focuses on reading whole words, and then a larger group of words will probably be used for this method. And phonics are emphasized, but not near as much as code emphasis. All right, and then finally, orthographic mapping. Orthographic mapping is the process of, you form letter-sound connections to be able to combine, and so these students can look at it and be able to see and be able to recognize words. They can make their own words. It's one of the more right now happening theories as far as sight word. If the student can figure out that pin, P-I-N, is made up of the sounds, then they can match those sounds. They can put those letters together and match those sounds. So orthographic mapping is great in helping students to recognize letter patterns and be able to learn those words. Guys, that's about all I've got for you today. I know this was quick. I felt like I had to just jam it all in there, but I hope you understand that, the science of reading, it's a groundbreaking study that it encompasses all aspects of reading, of teaching reading and learning to read that goes on in school. And as educators, it's so important to know this because, it encompasses, like we talked about, neurological disabilities such as dyslexia. That's a big one that we need to know and understand as educators. And this study is really taking literacy to the next level and really helping kids get the help that they need. I really appreciate everything. I really appreciate you tuning in for this discussion, and I will give you a quick view of the references that I used for this project. Thank you.